Alright, so today we're going to be setting up a file with layers so that you can create so this is how you do it to create a flyer, any type of brochure, any type of print work that you'd want to do. You want to make sure that you have layers on it. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, New, or I can come down here to Create New. I'm going to click Create New, and I'm going to click on Print right here so that I can get a letter. Letter is the standard one we use for most of our projects, so that's what we're going to use for this as well. 150, 8.5 by 11. We want to change our 150 pixels per inch. It could also be, if we change this to CMYK to print it, we do dots per inch, so this would be 150 dots per inch, and we want to always print 300 dots per inch. And then for screens, RGB is for screens, that's 150 pixels per inch. So that's kind of where we want to keep it. We want to go up here to change our title. We're going to title it File Setup, and that's it. So then we're going to create our document. Alright, so now that we have our document, the first thing I always do is I go in here and I close these tabs. Sometimes you have a bunch of things open, so I click on these double arrows at the top here, and that collapses it so that it's a little bit more compact. You have a better space. So if you have a bunch of libraries and other things open, just close those so that you can get your layers singularly here in one row. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to open our controller image. So you should have downloaded 2 images from the actual canvas. So if you haven't, pause this right now and go back and download those 2 images. They're just pictures on the page, so you're going to have to right click on them and save the image as something to your desktop, to your H drive, or somewhere. Alright. So I'm going to open the first image. I'm opening this image, and this is just my workflow. Usually when I do something like a flyer or something like that, images that I might do special effects to, or any type of other types of manipulation, I open them as a separate file. I use place embed when it's just something that I'm using straight out of the file and I'm not changing anything about it. I use the place embed. So for this one, I'm going to do a little bit of special effects on this to make it look a little bit different. So I'm going to open this as a separate file. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to select these images in the front of in the foreground here. So I'm going to go up to Select at the top of my screen. I'm going to go down to Subject right here, and I'm going to let the computer do it for me. So you can see it did pretty well. There's some space right here which I want to get rid of, and this little gap right here I want to get rid of, but it overall got the shape pretty well. As long as you're using a high contrast image from its background, or something that's centrally located in the frame, it usually will find it using the subject. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract this area right here. So I'm going to click L for my lasso tool. So if you don't have the lasso tool selected, so I'm right here, lasso tool, and then I'm going to go up here to the top in my options bar, and then I'm going to click on the third one in. It says subtract from selection. You can also do this by holding your option key or your alt key on a PC, but for this right here, I'm just going to use this. I'm just going to use the subtraction button because I know a lot of you are using trackpads. So I'm just going to get rid of this area right here. And like I said, it's a lot easier if you don't have a trackpad, if you're using a mouse or something. But this should work for me. Alright, so we have all of our shapes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to layers, and I'm going to make my layer a little bit bigger by dragging this down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the little Japanese flag, or the rectangle with the circle in it, to add a mask to this. Alright, so that gets rid of that background for me, and as you can see, there's still some edges here where I didn't do a good job of getting rid of it, but overall it looks pretty good for what we're going to do. I'm going to add some special effects to this, so I'm going to go over here to Filter, and I'm going to go down to Filter Gallery, and oops, got the wrong side selected. Make sure you're selecting the picture side of the layer. So I'm going to go to Filter, Filter Gallery, and I'm going to click on Sketch. No, not Sketch. Artistic. So I'm going to go to Artistic, and I'm going to choose Poster Edges. So this gives me a little bit more high definition, kind of postery, like graphic look to it, and you can adjust these to make them how you want, the more posterization you want in it. and it just gives it a little bit more digital look, if you ask me to. So I'm going to click OK on that, and that gives our controls a little bit more of a digital look. And next thing we're going to do, I'm going to click on my move tool, so you can hit your V key to click your move tool, and I'm going to grab it from the right hand side of the layer and drag it up and over, and I'm not letting go until I'm in the middle of my page, and then I'm going to let go. Right, so they're a little bit big for my space. So while it's still transform, and if it's not transformable, click on Command T or Control T, or there's a little square at the top here that you can click on, and just make this smaller. So I want to have it about the bottom half of my page, and then I'm going to click check mark to agree to that change. If you have your show transform controls on, you can turn those off if they bother you. I actually like to have mine on. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a background. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to place embedded that other file that we had. So I'm going to go File, Place Embedded, and I'm going to look for Distressed Low Res, click Place. And it's a little bit small, so I'm going to line it up to the corner. And while it's still, before I get rid of the X going across the page, I'm going to transform it, and then I'm going to click my check mark at the top to confirm it, and now I have my distressed background. So this will look really nice with that posterization we just did for the controllers. But we're going to go over here to blend modes, and we're going to change this. So right now we can't see the controllers, but if we go over here, there's lots of different blend modes that we can go with to see the controllers. I'm going to go with color burn. Right now you can't really see anything. It looks like it's white, and then on the controllers it's doing a little bit of funky thing here. That's fine, but we're going to eventually reorder all these layers, and it'll look a little bit different. So change that to color burn mode. So wherever it said normal in your layers, you're going to click that. Instead of normal, you're going to go down to color burn, and you have that color burn. And again, you can play with these. You're going to be making your own flyer, so you can either use this background that we did, or you can come up with something new. But this just gives you a little bit of a look to kind of start to begin from, because I know it's a little bit hard sometimes to come up with an idea from scratch. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to click on background. So I select my background layer, and the reason why I'm selecting is just because we're going to add another layer, and I want the layer to come up above background. We could obviously reorder these layers by dragging them, but this is a little bit simpler. So I'm going to come down here to my cookie at the bottom. I'm going to click on gradient, and I'm adding a gradient layer. So my gradient is, as you can see, my colors are white and gray, so my gradient goes from white to transparent because I have a transparent gradient selected. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to go to my reds. So I scroll down, and then I flip the little caret right there, and I think I'm just going to go with this first red, red 01, and I'm going to click OK. And it looks really cool. You can pick your own gradient however you want it. I'm going to do mine as radial, because what this is I want the attention to be in that middle area where all my text will be eventually. So around the edge, it kind of draws you into that center, and that's what I want to happen with this design. And we're going to look further into that in the fourth quarter. We're going to start learning how to direct the viewer, but right now this is just a nice simple way to get people to focus on the center of my page. So I'm in radial, I changed my color, and then I'm just going to click OK. Alright, so we have this distress texture. I'm going to drag this down a little bit so that it's just on top of the background and not on top of the controllers anymore. But again, you can see that nice posterization, how it kind of goes with that graphic background, that edgy, gritty background. Alright, so I'm going to hit D on my keyboard, and if you look down here, my colors, when I hit D, it went from black to white. I'm not sure if that works on all keyboards. Because I know I saw someone clicking and it kept going to this 3D menu at the top here. If that happens, you can just click on this little black and white icon in the corner there, and that'll make your colors black and white. The reason being is we're going to add a solid color, and I want you to be able to use the keystroke for it. So with my layer 1 selected, so my top layer, my controller layer, let's title that controller. So I'm going to double click that, controller, and title that controller. All the rest have names, which is good. So I'm clicking on my controller layer, and I'm going to click a new layer button. I'm going to title that layer stroke, S-T-R-O-K-E. So stroke, and select it again. And what I want to do is I'm going to fill this with white. So I'm going to hit Alt backspace, or not Alt backspace, Control backspace on a PC, or Command Delete on a Mac. So I hit, and that'll fill that with white. It doesn't matter if it fills it with black, it's fine. We're going to get rid of that color anyway, but it's a little bit easier to see when you have it on the white background. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to FX, and remember my stroke layer is still selected. And then this time I'm going to look for stroke. So I'm at the bottom of my layers panel. I'm going to click on stroke, and I'm going to change my size to 15. I'm going to make sure it's inside. My opacity should be 100%. And I'm going to click right here to change my color because I don't want it to be a white border. And white might look nice, but I'm going to go with black for this one. And again, you can change these colors to anything you want. It's up to you. So I have a white border and black border, and you can see it right there. And I'm going to click OK. So if you see on my picture, now you see the edge going across. That's what I was saying. It's a little bit easier to see if you don't have, if they're contrasting colors. So in my layers panel now, I'm going to look underneath opacity where it says fill, and I'm going to lower the fill to 0%. And what that does is it takes everything out except for the effect that we did. So now we have a nice border around it. It looks really nice. And so this is where we're getting to the meat and potatoes of the project. What I wanted you to do with this is learn how to organize your layers. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on stroke, and I'm going to collapse this as well by clicking the caret on the right-handed stroke. We're going to click on stroke, and then I'm going to go down to my bottom of my layers panel, and there's a little folder icon. I'm going to click that folder icon 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And that top one, group 4, I'm going to title text. The one underneath it, I'm going to title images. The one under that, I'm going to title graphics. And the last one, I'm going to title background. All right. So these are our layers, our sections. So depending on what program you're using, Illustrator, InDesign, Photoshop, you want to have everything grouped into text, images, graphics, and background, with text always on the top layer. Text always has to be the top. All right, images and graphics can be interchangeable depending on what you use them for. You can have graphics on top or images on top of these 2 layers. And then background always has to be the bottom. So text on the top, background on the bottom, and the 2 in the middle can be interchangeable. All right, so we're going to put these in order. So you try to put them in order first, and then I'll give you a second, and then I'll show you what they look like. Alright, so I'm going to put stroke in graphics. I'm going to put controller in images. I'm going to put distressed in graphics. And I'm going to put gradient fill in background. And I'm just going to close all of these so that my layers are nicely ordered. This background layer, it's up to you if you want to get rid of it. I'm going to delete it because I know I have that background color. So I'm going to unlock it by clicking on the lock. And then I'm just going to go down to the bottom of my layers panel and hit the trash can and delete that layer. So now all my layers are text, images, and I have them all in there, graphics, and background. So at this point, we're going to save it. So File, Save. I'm saving it to my computer. File setup, and that's fine. Alright, so this is the file that you're going to turn into me. So make sure you submit that file, and in the future, when you open this file again to do your flyer, you can change the colors, you know. If you want to change the background colors, go to background, click on this. Obviously, you might have changed these colors already. Maybe you want to go with orange, something like that. You know, depending on what you want to do. You know, you change the stroke the same way. So I'm going to go to graphics. To open the stroke, I just click on stroke, double click it. I can change the color. All right, so all that stuff can be changed. Right, and if you don't like what you did, you go back into your history. So I just went to my history, or you can go window history if you can't find it. And I'm just going to go back to delete layer, so I get back to my original. Control Z as well, edit, and then undo state is Control Z or Command Z